Welcome, everyone, to Vedius VOD review. If you're watching this, then you're probably watching it on YouTube, which is great. It's great to have you here. It's a pleasure. But you could have been here live. I mean, if you think about it. Admittedly, I am a day late with this one. We are streaming this on a Tuesday rather than a Monday, but you still could have been here live if you followed the Twitch channel Vedius Official. Now, the reason why you would want to be here live is to be a part of the engaging and thought-provoking and honestly inspiring Twitch chat that engages with me on a weekly basis. They ask thought-provoking questions such as, if you're happy and you know it, can you clap your hands, and how many clouds are there in the sky? So you too could be a part of that riveting conversation if you could just smash that follow button on twitch.tv/Vedius Official. So yeah, welcome. We're going to be talking about Origen versus Fnatic today. Fnatic had a pretty commanding victory, spoiler alert, and we're going to be looking at why. A large part of that is the draft, so a lot of my attention will probably go into the draft. So let's have a look-see and see what happened, shall we? Right, I've got my pen ready. We're going to very quickly zoom through all the bans and then talk about them. You can see how far he's clearly very tired. Right, bans done. So let's talk about each one. Now, Rakan ban, this is directed towards, I don't know why I drew the arrow there, to Hylissang. A lot of respect being shown towards him. They're worried that Fnatic maybe want to do, Xayah, Rakan, maybe. Right, bang. Set ban, because they know that Bwipo loves the champion. I know I've heard a few people say that he's got like a limited champion pool, but the champions that he's good at, he's very good at. So they just kind of want to take this away from him. To be fair, Set's quite a strong champion. We've seen a lot of pro teams prioritize him, usually in the first half of the draft. There's also the Braum ban, which is surprising because it doesn't really make much sense. The only reason why they would consider Braum is if they think that it's something that Hylissang is likely to play and they don't want to have to deal with. It could be the Origen. So here's the logic, right? Here's one theory. Origen banned Braum because they want to first pick Ornn, right? And obviously, Braum is a pretty good counter to Ornn, and they also know that Hylissang is willing to play it. So they banned Braum with the expectation of first picking Ornn, and Fnatic, because of their bans, put themselves in an awkward situation, right? Now, Fnatic are quite clever with their bans because they do the old strategy of why ban one OP, instead let's leave them all open, and they make Origen choose between Soraka and Ornn, right? Now, of course, Soraka is considered the more OP of the two, so they will end up first picking this, but that, of course, leaves the Ornn open for Fnatic. But they choose to ban away Gragas, Karthus, because they're both really strong picks for Xerxes. Also, I think we're starting to see that Xerxes maybe has a slightly narrower champion pool than he's letting on. So they limit his options, which is great. And then they choose to ban the Gangplank last. Now, the Gangplank ban is quite surprising, but they probably just wanted to make sure that both Ornn and Soraka were open. They could have banned Syndra, but of course they can then choose to get both Ornn plus Syndra if they want. And of course, these are both double flex picks, Both of them are. So they had that choice as well. So I think they choose to ban the Gangplank just because Alfaro is good at it. They're not quite sure what they're going to play, and so, yeah. I would say the Gangplank ban is the weirdest one. So, of course, as we mentioned, this ends up being a first pick Soraka, which Fnatic are obviously expecting, right? So they immediately trade this for Ornn. And then I think they also lock in the Aphelios as well. So they get a really good rotation because they get two very OP champs. I think the Aphelios comes in through here. So if we just kind of take a second to quickly look at this, like Fnatic are trading one OP for two, right? Seems pretty fair, but of course this champion is considered really strong. So Fnatic now have to decide how they're going to counter this, and they obviously do have a plan in mind, but we'll get to that in a second. So now in terms of options for Origen, smart choice here would be to just lock in the Misfortune, just because you want to make sure that you get a solid matchup into this, and MF is considered like one of the better champs. Of course, the risk of running MF is that you're playing it into an Ornn, so while you're standing there going ha 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 ha, Ornn is just going to be like brrr, and then, you know, smash you, and then you're not going to be able to ult. So that's something to concern. You're also a low mobility AD carry in the sense that you have no dashes, so there is obviously that risk as well, which Origen have to factor in. So maybe they go for a little bit more of a hyper carry, maybe they save their AD carry for later on in the draft. But no, instead they choose to just lock in their bot lane very quickly. So they get the MF, and then they pair it with the Nautilus. So I think the main reason why they get the Nautilus is with Rakan banned and Braum banned, this kind of increases the priority on Naut, and they think that they've got, it's like they're now basically picking apart Hylissang's champion pool. These are the 3 champs that he's pretty much only played. So they're trying to narrow that pool and make it difficult for him in terms of options. Pardon me. And he also offers a form of engage, right? So now Origen is looking for more crowd control with this composition. That's what they're looking for. So yeah, because they want more follow-up and they want more of a front line for Soraka to play around, and they need a little bit more damage, right? So Fnatic now, I think they could lock in their jungler, or they could lock in support. And then they lock in the Pantheon. So this Pantheon, we'll know later on, ends up being used as a counter to Soraka. The main reason is Panth is like OP at dives. Panth OP dives. Right? Why is he OP at diving? Well, the main reason why is because of his E, right? The E can just mitigate all turret damage and is a really good tool for setting up those plays. It's obviously point and click, which is very strong. The only thing they need to take into consideration is damage. Right now, they do have AD. They don't have a huge amount of AP, so they're looking at either an Elise, Talia, or like they could consider Cho jungle as well. I think Cho can be really good. What other AP jungler? They could also do Diana jungle, but I don't think Diana jungle is the best because I think it takes a little too while to scale, and it will be very difficult to dive this champion as well. Obviously, we know that they end up going to Talia, which is a really good pairing with the Pantheon, but they had actually quite a few options that they could have gone for, but the whole intent of that duo was to just hard camp this champion. Right? So now you're moving into the second half of rotations, and we kind of want to take a stock of the situation, right? So Origen have options where they can continue to pinch the support pool to hurt Hylissang. However, the thing that they should be thinking about is what Fnatic want to do. And they don't know where this Panth is going or where this Ornn is going. Panth can be played in jungle, in support, in top, and in mid. So it's a very flexible champion that can go pretty much anywhere, which means that you can't assume that it's just going to play to dive top, right? However, if that is your game plan, then what you as Origen should be doing is banning away dive champions. So Elise should definitely be a consideration for a ban, because you don't want to run the risk of this champion getting perma-dived. You could also consider the Talia, just in case they end up pivoting, and this ends up becoming a Talia Pantheon bot lane with the Felios in mid, right? So if Origen is thinking that way, then these are the type of junglers that you want to think about banning. Again, they could also look to ban away supports, which means that things like Thresh, maybe a Tom, trying to think what other supports could they ban away. Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure. But supports are things that they could ban away, right? Leona, yeah, Leona is another one. Leona is the other one. Thank you, Twitch chat. Leona is the other one you can think about. Oh, Echo. Oh, chat was also saying Echo is an AP jungler. Yeah, Echo could maybe also work. Yeah. Echo. I think Echo's setup is a little too slow, but you're right. Echo could definitely work in terms of AP jungle. But for Fnatic, what they should ban is things like J4. They want to get rid of any crowd control or like setup, and they want to get rid of Olaf as well. They want to get rid of these junglers because they synergize very well with this, and they would complement this extremely well. So these two jungle bans make the most sense for Fnatic right now, because they obviously have a game plan of what they want to do, and you're now just trying to make Origen's composition as awkward as humanly possible. So you just want to take those two junglers out of the pool and make their life much harder. Limit their options. Interesting that they chose to ban away the Aatrox. The only other reason why they would consider banning Aatrox is because they don't know where the Soraka is. So Soraka can obviously be flexed between mid and top, and if the Soraka is mid and Ornn ends up being played top with the Pantheon in the mid lane instead, then you want to make sure that there isn't a good matchup into the Ornn, which from the Europeans' perspective, they do think Aatrox is. So Aatrox is considered like strong into the Ornn. So Fnatic is thinking from that perspective. What if Soraka is mid lane? What could really ruin an Ornn top lane's day? Or what does Pantheon not want to play into? It could also be that they've committed to this and that they're playing Ornn mid and then Pantheon top, in which case they would then just bring the Pantheon from top lane down into mid and they would dive that way, which is fine. That can also work. But in that case, they're just thinking, what top laner do we not want to deal with? And Aatrox is the choice for them. Probably the combination sustain is a little too much that they don't want to have to deal with. So the Cassio ban is very surprising. This immediately indicates that Origen is thinking Rise. And this also tells me that Origen is thinking that this is top and that this is jungle. Yes. That's what I think Origen is thinking, based on the Cassio ban. Because they're trying to remove... they're trying to remove counter matchups to Rise. And then they also ban Leona. So these bans suggest to me that they don't have an idea of what Fnatic's game plan will be, which is fair because it's difficult to predict with all these freaking flexible champions. What was this? But yeah, we already talked about it. I think they should have considered banning AP junglers. AP jungle. But it's a difficult thing to think about. It's easy for me to say in hindsight, right? So I wouldn't say that it was necessarily a fault. It's just that their logic is, okay, we want to pick Rise here. And, okay, well, we have an extra ban. Let's just mitigate some of the options that he has. And so they get rid of Leona. And you can see that Leona makes sense in the sense of dive, but I don't think Leona's a good pairing with Aphelios. I do think the Thresh would have been a better ban here. But perhaps they just forget that Hylissang can play it, or they're not afraid of it, or I don't know. But, yeah. These bans I don't think are super strong. But that's with the context of knowing what Fnatic's plan is, which, of course, Origen don't. However, the next two picks here I think are really weak. So, in my opinion, they should have done Jarvan here. J4. Mainly because I think dive is really effective against champions like Aphelios. And also it's really good setup for MF. Because the thing about J4 ult is it creates this zone that the enemy team is forced to play around, which then makes it easier. And of course you could end up just splitting the fight where Jarvan's over here and MF is back here, and then meanwhile the Panth and the Ornn are just like, brah, die, which could also happen. But I think that Jarvan scales better, offers more in the late game fights, gives you more options, also gives you better early game. And instead they choose Rek'Sai, which I think doesn't make any sense. Because Rek'Sai is a champion that's trying to snowball hard early game, but you have no lanes that you can play around. Outside of maybe bot lane. And then the Rise, I think it was it wasn't Alfari on the desk. It was Mickey who was with me. Mickey was on the caster desk with me. Mickey said that these champions don't make sense with these champions because Soraka, pardon me, MF and Nort all want to team fight, right? So they want to play in the 5v5, but Rise and Rek'Sai want to play on side. What the fuck was that? So you can already see that these two things want to do different things. They don't actually want to do the same, which is a problem because now you're looking at win conditions, and your main win condition is, oh, well, maybe if we get him strong enough to win on the side lane, then we're fine. However, I don't think he's ever really going to threaten an Ornn, because Ornn will build enough magic resistance that you won't be able to ever kill him, and he can just wave clear and hold that lane. But also, the problem with this comp, which you'll see especially in the next pick, is they can't even win through split pushing because this guy has a global, and this Talia that's about to come through also has a global, which means that he just gets killed all the time. Now, obviously, they don't know that the Talia is coming, but even before that, it's the fact that this champion doesn't make sense with what they wanted to go for here. So what does make sense? Well, you could consider something like a Karma, right? That's one option. You also could consider doing what they did last time, and they put the Soraka in the mid lane, and then they do stuff like Camille top, Fiora top, some kind of hyper carry, but they're obviously concerned about the amount of magic damage that they have, and they don't have a good AP jungler, must be their logic, that they can pair with it. So they're not comfortable playing stuff like Echo or Talia themselves. Talia, whatever. So yeah, it's I think that we saw some of the limitations of what Xerxes could do in the jungle, because if he's not willing to play AP junglers, then it also limits their ability. I mean, because Karthus was banned, right? Karthus is obviously their go-to AP jungle, and if they could get Karthus, then they probably would pair up the Karthus here. But yeah, obviously, like, it's much harder to do in the moment. It's all very easy. Again, you've got to remember that I'm saying this with hindsight in mind, and also because I know what Fnatic's game plan is. So it's super difficult to predict what Fnatic is going to do. And just, if you look at the state of the current draft, you're thinking that this is jungle, they think that this is mid, they think that this is bot lane, and now they need a safe blind pick mid laner. So their options are, I don't know, maybe Zoe, Ryze is obviously another one. And they banned out the Cassio because both of these are pretty safe and easy to use. And the thing about running this is it's a pretty strong 2v2 mid jungle, which means that you can use this prio to maybe play through bot and then set up dives, and then you set this champion up to be the carry, and hey ho, you're in a great spot. But yeah, I think that, like, these two picks were not that great. I just think it's really important to acknowledge that this is also done in hindsight, because I also know what Fnatic's plan is. Because when the next pick comes through from Fnatic, which obviously ends up being the Talia, you recognize the very difficult situation that Origen find themselves in, which is that... excuse me. Let's think about Origen's win condition, right? So one potential win condition is Ryze plays through side lane. Well, you can't play through side lane anymore because of this and this. He ults in, she ults in, and then if one of these three is already in a side lane, you're immediately 3 versus 1, 1v3, right? Which means that Nuke dies and loses, right? So they can't win through split pushing. If we also think about the laning phase, well, MF loses prio early because Aphelios has 600 freaking range on his first gun. He also has lifesteal. LS, which means that he has push over MF. And you also have pretty good gank setup with this duo. But they'll end up having to respect the bot side of the map because, as Mickey told us, playing against blue side Rek'Sai means that you can come in from behind the wall where the tri-brush is, and then you can set up ganks in the bot, so they're forced to play defensively of the game, but that's fine because Fnatic's game plan is to play through top. So that brings us to our next win condition, which for Origen is Soraka. Who cares if they're really strong, especially in the early game with these two, if you have a late game Soraka, which means that we just have to make sure that we get Soraka through the laning phase and she doesn't get permanently dived. Well, that's part of the problem. If she ever loses her flash, the dive is so freaking strong because this guy can hit you from a mile away, this guy can come in from anywhere, this guy can come in from anywhere, that it's like, and I don't think Aphelios has been nerfed on this patch, which means that his ultimate is like 1600 range or something, 1600, 1800, whatever it is, which means that he can also hit you from the other side of the freaking map. It's also really difficult if she ever loses a flash to keep them alive. So, but they also just straight up lose 5v5 because have you seen this comp? There's so much damage. There's so much dive. They scale extremely well because you have this, who also provides upgraded Ornn items. You get Infinity Edge here. You get Youmu's here. You get whatever you want here. Deathcap probably. But you can also get... No, you won't get Ludens because you build the jungle item. So you probably get Deathcap or Zhonya's. One of the two. And yeah, basically Origen's win condition is snowball. Really hard. Just dumpster over Fnatic. But they have to have really good players in order to do that. So basically, Fnatic won the draft in every aspect. They have an insanely strong early game. They have better scaling. They have very easy lanes to play around. And they have an answer to every possible win condition that Origen is trying to do. So it's just kind of doomed. Yeah. And I think the biggest issues were from these two picks, personally. In terms of what else they could have gone for, let me have a look. Ball wiki. Because I can't remember every champion in the game right now, so I need to remind myself what champs are available. Let's have a look. So again, they're kind of preparing themselves for a situation where they've got to deal with all this dive. Like, Orianna's one possible option. She does very well in lane, but obviously she doesn't do super well against all this dive, which isn't great. Yasuo is another option if you'd be willing to play AP jungle. Of course, your AP junglers are a little bit limited, but if Origen was willing to play Taliyah, they could have done something like Yasuo Taliyah, because Yasuo Windwall would have been very strong here because it blocks both the Taliyah ult and it blocks Ornn ult. It blocks a lot of things. But of course, maybe they're not comfortable Yasuo into Ornn, because I can imagine that's not super fun. If they had done Zoe, it still would have been super hard. Like, I think their options were not great. As I said, they also could have put the... they could have considered Sylas and then stolen the Ornn ultimate and then had dive themselves. You know, with the combined healing that you have of Sylas and Soraka, maybe that's good. Alternatively, they put the Soraka in mid and then they play carries top lane like Camille. Maybe Aurelia, but I don't know how much of a carry and how well she synergizes with this comp. It's hard. Zillion? I don't know. Zillion maybe, but... Cass? Yeah, well, I mean, that's... they also banned Cass themselves, so they could have also considered Cass, and I think Cass could have also worked here if they were willing to play it. I think they tunneled too hard on focusing on the Rise. I mean, it's difficult because it also depends on, like, what are the teams willing to play? What options do they have? And I think these bans were really good because these are the two AP junglers that Origen really like to play. Which then, of course, mitigates what options Origen have. But I think Yasuo could have been really strong. Veigar, maybe. Victor Veigar, maybe. Maybe. I think Victor's actually quite good against dive because his W is a really strong anti-dive tool. Veigar's also pretty strong anti-dive because of how well he splits up the enemy team. I do think Jarvan would have made more sense here, though, if they wanted an early game jungler that also scales better because it offers better engage and pairs better with this. Also tailors more towards the team fight comp that these three are working towards. So I think I would have preferred a Jarvan if they were committing to AD. So yeah, in any case, Fnatic kind of smashed in the draft. Excuse me. J4 Veigar? Maybe. J4 Veigar. Like in paper? Maybe. It's hard to think about. I'm not the best when it comes to theoretical drafts and what makes things better, to be totally honest with you. But what I can say is that I don't think Rek'Sai was the best pick, and I also don't think that Ryze was the best pick. So Fnatic, cheese with level 1. Haha. Mickey talked about how if you are going to invade, it's important to start with early sweeper, because if you ever come in through bot side, then the enemy will always trade top side, because they'll have people like here and here who can drop a ward, which means that it's worth bringing sweeper to help clear out your half of the jungle so that you don't give away too much information. Because you would have had time here to sweep this, and then you could actually path back down towards blue if you wanted to. And then you wouldn't have given any information to your opposition. But the only sweeper that they have is on her side, which she used to, invade on the bot side. So he did get one ward, but Origen still have all this information. So Talia does full topside clear, I think, whereas Rek'Sai does buff to buff into Gromp, so that he can also be towards top side of the map to avoid any potential early dives coming out from the Talia. OG also know that the Talia just did Raptors. They can't tell which direction the Talia has now gone in, whether it be bot or top. But as we talked about, Reckless has early push. Ryze will also have early push in the mid lane because, you know, it's on. And then, excuse me, I'm yawning a lot. I apologize. Let me move my camera again. Back down here. So you can see Rek'Sai took a path which is here, into here, into here. Basically, he wants to be in a position where he can counter gank. I don't think they're going to dive the Pantheon. He is only level 2, but if he has decided to take his E, then diving that becomes real dangerous. Because you tried to dive, he then hits you with the W, and then he also has all the damage mitigation because of his E. And then, yeah, scary, scary. So I assume that the Rek'Sai just hit to counter gank, and maybe threaten, scare the Pantheon off of a couple waves. Oh, Nuke Duck also roams up. This is a different way in which they can find that kill. Yeah, I quite like that roam. Used a lot of the early prior that they had in mid. Very early TP force from the Ryze, but it doesn't matter too much because he's still got his tier, which is what he wants. He wants to get back as quickly as possible, start stacking that up. So again, I think it's important to recognize that win conditions for Origen are maybe get Nuke Duck super ahead, snowball with Xerxes, maybe get Alfaro to a point where he's not getting dived permanently. These are all the things you want to be thinking about for Origen, and how that well are they playing towards those conditions, which is obviously hard because of the comp of Fnatic. So Selfmade now comes bot to help cover, just get some vision down, because again, something that Mickey talked about on cast was that Rek'Sai can take a lot of creative pathing because he can go over so many walls. She can go over so many walls. So she can use tunnels to go over here, and then she can come in from behind here, which obviously you can't really do much about because you can't ward or see. So originally he tries to come in through the lane, which is not ideal, but he also doesn't know how much vision is in the river. God, I'm yawning a lot. It's because I'm doing this after work rather than on a Monday. So again, notice how the Ryze is roaming a lot, but also notice how he's not really roaming with his jungler. He did do it at level 3 where they tried to set up a roam play up top, so this was clearly a thought out plan that they had in advance. But I wonder if he's just... What's he doing? He's literally just looking for a roam top, seeing if he can find anything, but he doesn't. He has the time to do that short roam. So now we can see Xerxes looking for a gank. And they put a ward on top of the trinket as well. You can see it. Ward on top of the trinket. Boo! Right there. So just as Reckless tries to click it, he can't. Instead, he just hits the ward. Unlucky. Nuke Duck going to keep pushing. But Nemesis is doing a great job of actually staying even in this matchup. You can see he got a pretty good trade there as well. But he's actually doing really well. Obviously, Bwipo is struggling because Soraka's OP. But here comes a potential dive from Fnatic. Oh, they actually don't take all the minions. And then they get a really good kill. So remember, first win condition is... so the reason... Why can this happen? So, first things first. Gank comes in through bot. Right? So they know that Xerxes is bot lane right now. Right? That's step number 1. Step number 2, Talia is topside because that's where her camp spawned, so she went back to top. Also, Nemesis gets a good trade onto Nuke Duck, forcing him back, and he doesn't have teleport, which you're about to see. So with all these things combined, they look to make the play. Now, of course, Rek'Sai has time to be able to roam up towards top lane, but the problem for Rek'Sai is she positions in a way where she's like, oh, I'm going to counter gank, but she doesn't actually dissuade the dive. And Fnatic literally one-shot the Soraka, so she loses everything. Destiny tries to land a hook, but it is too late. And then we get a bit of a swap-a-rooney. Alright, so this is the first kill. I mean, it's a good first kill. It's definitely what OG need to do. But they can't trade one back, which is obviously a problem for them. Now, while they do still hold the gold lead for now, this champion has no flash, and now she's mid against Ornn, and when Ornn's ultimate comes back up, they can just dive her. Because this champ. The great thing is, you have this great combo with Taliyah, where as long as an element of crowd control lands, you can find an easy kill. So that's the play you're looking at now. And this is a great example, though, from Fnatic's comp, where it showcases an ability to outscale your opponents while also being proactive in the early game. So it really highlights how just because you draft scaling doesn't mean you have to just sit there and do nothing. You can still be proactive with the tools that you have. You just have to be willing to be proactive. Yep. So Ryze has now moved to top lane, and he's now an even bigger bully against the Pantheon. And this, in theory, is a freer lane for Alphari because the Ornn can't really push the Soraka around, and they're just afraid of getting dived, which is why they've made the swap. Because Soraka doesn't have TP, or Flash, rather. You don't want to run that risk against Panth, where a wave can be stacked up against you, and then you get dived. So that's what they're trying to avoid. That's the logic. But watch Thresh as he roams from base into mid. I think he's got his Moby Boots. Once we switch back over to the items, yes he does, and immediately goes to mid. So now they're considering a dive top, or they're considering a dive mid. OG choose to swap as well, because the Herald. But this is a really good play from Fnatic. This is all about the setup. They get the level 6s. Does Hylissang need to flash? This is what Mickey said. He probably doesn't need to flash here, but he does anyway, just in case. Better to get it than not. So they get a kill, and then they get free Herald. Really clean play from Fnatic. Straightforward, easy to execute, a lot of gank setup. Alphari doesn't have flash, the silence wasn't enough. And very good play. Very, very good play. See? Tries to silence the Thresh. But it doesn't matter. They get the kill. Now Fnatic get more turret plates. And Origen's really sad. So again, let's bring back to the win conditions of Origin. So Ryze, pretty strong right now. Has Tia, has another mana crystal, and also has a pretty healthy CS advantage against both solo laners. He's level 8. Oh no. Pantheon's level 9. Nemesis level 8. Soon to be 9. So that whole get Ryze ahead situation also not working out. The only bright side right now for OG is the fact that MF has a level advantage and is quite strong with a BF sword. But still, OG can't look to fight right now because Fnatic also have a pretty strong early game comp with Taliyah, Pantheon, and Thresh. So now they rotate up towards the top side. This is where Mickey says goodbye. Bye, Mickey. And OG just kind of left fumbling. OG don't know what to do. Let's watch. So Rek'Sai goes mid to get the Raptors. At this point, OG should be thinking about trading for Drake. But they don't have Prio over bot, and they don't know where Taliyah is. Also, Nuke Duck could get dived. I'm surprised he sticks around for so long. Anyway. I think they should have considered going to Drake. But they've got no vision anywhere. See, but now Fnatic can go Drake. What the fudge cakes? Oh, I remember this kill. I remember. When does that ward go down? It goes down right now, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It wasn't there before. It wasn't. It goes down right now. Just as he bases. Ready to set up the play. Yep, and now it's kind of doomed. Because remember when we said, oh, well, maybe if they get Nuke Duck ahead, this is how Origen win. Nuke smiley face. But no. Boo. And then it's Nuke. And then it's a sad face. Feels bad, man. I love this shadowing coming out from Selfmade. He wants to help Nemesis push. So rather than go top, I mean, Reckless is going to take the red buff anyway. So it's fine. But he just shadows him to help him push out. I mean, he probably takes some of the experience, but it doesn't matter. It's more about covering. They have some information on where OG's at, who are mainly setting up around the Baron because they have Soraka. The Baron clear is pretty good, but obviously the Rift Herald is also super good. But all in all, Fnatic are getting these plates, and it's difficult to punish them. It's difficult to punish them. More plates in the bank. I'm surprised that no one is just bot lane from Origen. I can only imagine the reason is that they want Soraka to just group now, but also they're afraid of getting dived in side lane because we talked so much about it. Fnatic's comp is really good time. Good pick here from Origen. He overstays though. Ooh, Nemesis just barely getting away. So let's have a look at this. So Hylissang's trying to clear some vision. Fnatic know that Bwipo doesn't have ultimate, or they should have a rough idea. And it doesn't matter even if he does, because they just one-shot him. And then TP comes in, double TP actually. And they end up trading 1-for-1. Okay. Yeah, pretty solid fight. And Fnatic's like, okay, we can trade mid tower now. We'll get bot tower as well. Good hook. They get the ignite out as well. I mean, really, it's just the bot lane dying. I think they overcommit here to this mid tower, as you can see. They just stick around a little too long, I think, because they have no escapes. Well, I say they have no escapes, but it's at this point, I think. All right, so to be fair, this is fine from Fnatic. So they take the tower and then they disengage. They know where the rise is, which is fine. Nuke Duck does have TP, but he doesn't use it, which is a little surprising. He just wants to push out top, I guess. I mean, he should really consider just coming in, but whatever. Bwipo's hanging around to try and stop OG from pushing in the wave. So they keep their tower alive. There's something wrong with my finger. What the hell? My Corona. Wait, that's definitely not the song. What is the song? My Sharona, that's the one. Thank you. Definitely don't want to be singing the other version. It's definitely not good. All right, so OG tried to trade. Ooh. All right. So let's backtrack a little bit. So after the small fumble from Fnatic in the mid lane, they push in mid, they abandon bot. Well, they don't need to deal with it, right? So they push in mid, they push in top, and then they use that prio to get the Rift Herald. And then, of course, because they commit up top and they've abandoned mid wave. So let me try and explain this. So here, the wave is neutralized, right? But OG get to maintain control of the mid, and then they get to the wave first, forcing Fnatic to take the long way around. Meanwhile, Ryze is also going bot lane, and they think that they can trade. So they can end up trading mid and bot just for top. Really good ultimate here from Reckless. Locks down a bunch of members from Origen to allow for Selfmade to flash over the wall and set up this engage. But he just doesn't have enough burst to be able to kill Alphari. And because of the silence and the healing, they actually end up getting a kill back. However, the important thing to recognize is that this tower stays alive. Meanwhile, this top lane dies and gets pushed in by the Herald, and Nukeduck doesn't have time to take it. So while Selfmade does lose his life, the play is overall more beneficial for Fnatic, and as you can see, Fnatic find another team fight, and they get Drake. So OG, I think they had the right idea, but I love the way in which Fnatic play this, which is like, no, we can fight 3v4. We might even be able to get a kill. They can't, but that's fine. And then Upset thinks that he can trade. Bates is supporting. Yeah, because they're like, hey, they're trolling right now. We can fight this. But they're not respecting the fact that Pantheon can ult. Nemesis also has ulti. And so, yeah, he ends up dying. Just they should get out of this. But then they also get Inferno Drake. They just gotta wait for Selfmade to arrive. Oh, or not. Because of Felios. So now Origen have lost. Oh yeah, this is just horrendous play from Origen. For some reason they think that they can just take tower bot with Fnatic on Infernal. Like they 100% know that they're on Infernal. And maybe they're going for a collapse here, but that's definitely not what it looks like. And then 3 people just die. So it was bad before, and now it's just over. Now it's just over. And Fnatic get to keep everything alive. Yeah, I mean, like, this is the thing where you can't just sit there and say that, you know, Fnatic's draft won them the game. Because while it definitely helped, it's plays like this and decisions like this that really help them. This is such a good play from Selfmade. He should have, like, one-shot this champ here. Look at how low she gets. She should have just died. But immediate flash into Wish. If he didn't have Wish, that probably was a kill. And then the silence there means that there's nothing that Selfmade can do to get out. This is just like, the only reason why Alphari lives here is because of his champion. But that was such a good play from Selfmade. And the ultimate from Reckless as well, really good. And it's just like really good awareness. You know, in theory, Selfmade gets a kill here and then they disengage and they wave clear. Sure, it ends up being, but they do the damage, right? They instantly clear the wave and then Nukeduck TP's top lane because he wants to keep the tower alive. And then, of course, it gives Fnatic the opportunity to engage in mids. And then he realm warps mid, thinking that he can help. Origen just shows so slow on the play, and then they make this move, which makes absolutely no sense. They're trying to trade bot tower for something, but they know where Fnatic is. And just because Fnatic have no ults, they still have a numbers advantage. And they get the top tower. Yeah, Fnatic plays super well. And now the game's over. And I remember being in cast and thinking at the time, the game's over. There's no way in which Origen can win because there's too much dive for Upset to be able to solo carry. Nukeduck can't win on a side lane because if he ever tries to go side lane, he gets dived on top of. And pretty much everything about this situation is just absolutely catastrophically bad for Origen. Oh, maybe they found a pick? Great. They punished Hylissang while he was trying to ward. Definitely buys them a bit of time, which is good. Now they try to push out top wave while bot is dying, but they can't do anything about it because they need to stay near Baron because they don't have any teleports. So with these gone, they have to lose this wave and no one can go answer it. It should in theory be pushing that way. So Ryze is forced to group a team, but he doesn't want to group because he's Ryze. OG tried to find another pick. But dive. The sound of Pantheon's ult is so cool. Okay, so he gets knocked at first, but this time he has stopwatch. And it's super easy for the Pantheon to roam. But bang, good ultimate, separates Alphari from the team. He's offering all these heals, but it's too late because Upset gets killed. Does Upset have flash? No, he doesn't. Talia wall into Babang. But see, you can also see the OG, if they ever want to fight, they're completely relying on Destiny. This is also why I'm thinking that Jarvan would have been better, because it would have acted as another engage. But now Fnatic can just get Baron, because they want a big team fight. Boom, and it's gone. It's very clean play overall from Fnatic. Origen have made quite a few silly mistakes. Their draft has been pretty poor. And you can see that Origen is struggling to know what to do, because it feels like that they have no clear win condition. So they try to go for another fight. Xerxes gets one shot. Bwipo is just tanking them all up. And while he does die, well, it ends up being a 2-for-2 overall here. Which is like best case scenario for Origen, but they still end up losing the Drake. So this is the fight itself again. Yeah, I wish there was more to review. I quite like Fnatic's lane assignments. They spend a lot of time playing 1-4. They don't bother trying to split push. They'll have someone push out the bot wave, but they're also punishing the fact that Origen misused their teleports. It's very different to how G2 use their teleports in their very creative ways, and how they do their best to keep waves pushed in at all times. But look, oh, Nuke Duck trying to split in a side lane. Lol joke. Admittedly, this play initially is quite good because the rest of Origen are all nearby. Poor Selfmade keeps getting silenced. But the Rek'Sai still dies anyway because Aphelios. And then they kill Nuke Duck. Yep. They don't need to reset. They can keep pushing. There's the Molten Edge. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Still diving because they can. The Baron's gone. But you can see, like, imagine if they had 30 seconds more on that Baron. They probably could have sieged onto the next tower. Maybe, maybe not. See, but they keep mid-pro. They also have a good way of being set up on the top lane. Excuse me. Everything about this is super good for Fnatic. Like, they're extremely patient. They work well as a team. You can see that Bwipo is arguably a little overextended bot lane, but he also has his teleport up. So if a fight were to happen here, he's fine. They're going to send Ornn now to clear that wave. And as he's going to catch that wave, Pantheon is now grouping with the team. He's not overextending. I would say that Selfmade is overextending just a little bit, playing with fire, but he does have flash. So now they're just waiting for the next Cloud Drake. And then a TP flank comes in from Nuke Duck and they get the kill. Who again tries to play in side lane, but this is what happens every time. I'm going to play in the side lane and then dive, dive, dive. And then he dies. And now Fnatic get the soul. Or they reset. Also fine. While keeping Bwipo bot lane. I think they've invested a lot of vision towards bot side of the map, which just suggests that they want to secure the soul. Of course, Baron does spawn in 4 seconds, so the best bet for Origen is to rush this down, which is why they TP in. They're going to rush it? Not yet. Here we go. They engage onto the Ornn. Destiny trying to tank, and there's Alfari dead. Yeah, Panth doesn't need ult. Just look at him. He's like flash, stun, and knockup not even needed. They just one-shot him. Because Alfari also uses his flash in the fight, and then Upset dies. Yep. And that's it. Ace. Game. Whew. Yeah. They absolutely smash Origen. I mean, Origen made a lot of mistakes this game. But also they had very few options in order to win as well. Yeah. I mean, I told you it was going to be a pretty quick one. I don't think there was a huge amount of options that Fnatic, the Origen really had based on the draft that they gave themselves, but also some of the execution decisions that they made. I really think that there's a problem right now with jungle mid for OG. I feel like these two don't work together very well. And I mean, we saw that roam at level 3 where all 3 players moved up towards top lane to maybe threaten a dive. But outside of that, we never saw the mid laner roaming with the jungler. We didn't take advantage of the fact that they were playing with the Rek'Sai. That's a B. Okay, it's meant to be a D. So, yeah. I think Origen's issues are interesting because I think they have very good players, right? And I think that every player knows what they're supposed to do, and they have pretty good awareness for the most part. However, I think there are some draft issues. Not a lot of them. I wouldn't say that they're like draft holes, but I think that their mid laner, Nuke Duck, has certain ideas around what is good and what is bad into what. Like, I think he also played Silas into Perks as the Blanc, and I don't think the Silas made sense back then. It also didn't make sense when G2 really picked it. I mean, like, I can understand why you'd pick a Silas, but from the context of the comp, it wasn't great. We also saw him play Kiana, which also wasn't super good. And then again, we also saw the Rise today. So while he does have a deep champion pool, I have question marks around Nuke Duck's perspective on certain matchups, but also what his champion, what they offer to the comp. Now, admittedly, in this game, I think his hands were slightly tied because of what happened. But then it also brings into question what the jungle pool looks like. Because we've seen Zeus have a lot of comfort on Karth and Gragas. But outside of this, it's much harder for him to have an impact in the same way. You know, maybe we need to get some Talia from him as well. What about the Jarvan? What about Echo? I don't know how good Echo is from a pro player perspective. I'm not sure. But maybe there's some drafting issues in jungle, and maybe there's some drafting things in mid. I don't know. I think like a lot of Origen's issues are kind of underlaid and they're not super obvious. It's difficult to tell. But they're a team definitely worth watching just to figure out where they go from here. Because if draft is going to keep holding them back, then that's obviously going to be a problem. But creativity and flexibility in draft is super important. I think it's been important since last year, and I think that's why G2 and Fnatic succeed. But I think not only is Fnatic very flexible in the draft right now, they also have a very good understanding of what works in the meta and what doesn't, and also how to use it. And I think this man right here is also playing very well. I think his pathing is smart, and I think that his mechanical execution is very high. So I think that Fnatic is playing very well right now. So, Vedius, guys, you troll. So yeah, that does it. It was pretty short, honestly. It was a pretty one-sided game. Fnatic played extremely well. I think that they showcased a lot, and you should be pretty excited about Fnatic. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you watch on YouTube, be sure to tune in every Monday for my weekly VOD reviews. We'll be back next week, probably talking about the inevitable G2 Origin game that everyone's going to vote for. Vote for Misfits, guys. Vote for Misfits. Let's VOD review a Misfits game. Yeah? Okay, we'll see. Anyway, see you next week. Bye.